picture. In 1990, the state gave the city about $27, $28 million in aid for other purposes of local government. Police, fire, public works, library, health, senior center, all of that. About $27, $28 million. Today in 2012, it's $11 million. They've cut the state aid going to the city of Lowell by $16 million over that time. Now you know that in 1990, a loaf of bread cost whatever. But you know it costs a lot more than that today. The same goes for energy costs, health costs, you go on and on and on, to see that they've cut that. So that's put a real squeeze on city government. Property taxes. Well, there's a couple things happening on this chart. In 2000, you can see that the city raised just about $60 million in property taxes. And by today, it's about $105 million. The difference is the purple shows the base amount and what's happened to that base amount. From 2000 until just about 2005, it went up very little. The yellow is new growth happening in the city, and that grows. That is cumulative. And so you can see, but during that period of time, taxes as a whole barely moved. Now, your individual property taxes might have gone up a lot. If they went up a lot, somebody else's went down during that period of time. But in fact, what was happening here in the early 2000s, 2000 to 2005, was that the city was basically living on a savings account. The city was spending money as if it was always going to be there. But in fact, this blue line was our reserves. It peaked in 2002, free cash reserves. It peaked in 2002 at about $18 million. And then over the course of the next number of years, it went all the way down to negative $2.2 million. It was an artificial revenue source. It created what we call a structural deficit. So you couldn't sustain that. And that's what in fact was happening at the end of fiscal year 2006, and the problems that then were created in passing the 2007 budget. In 2008, we put in place a policy that maintained property tax growth at just 2.5% per year. That's all we allow ourselves to do, is go up that 2.5% a year. And any additional money that we have, that we have to spend, we have to find other means to make that happen. We're still $5 million in the city of Lowell. We're $5 million below what the cap is for the city under the state's Proposition 2.5 law. And we're maintaining that. We consider that to be, in essence, part of our overall reserves. But this is a problem that did occur during that period of time. And of course, once that money disappears, you've got nothing else to fall back on, which just complicates your problem. Just another property tax chart that I want to show. In the year 2000, going back those 10 years, the difference between what the city's average tax bill was and the state's average tax bill. The city was $681 below the state average. In 2011, the city is $1,300 below the state average. We have controlled over that period of time, particularly since we instituted that policy, that 2.5%, we've grown that gap in trying to hold the line on property taxes. There was a good article in yesterday, I think it was in yesterday's Globe about this, about the communities that are facing what they've all done with regards to property taxes, and how many of them have gone basically above. They've asked the voters in those communities to vote to go above Proposition 2.5, to tax more than 2.5%. We have stayed below that, which I think is significant. But it also, when the state's cutting their aid and you're holding the line on taxes, something has to give. And somehow you have to make the make ends meet. One of the other pressures we're facing is in fixed costs. Fixed costs, generally, we talk of two areas: pensions and health insurance. Okay? Pensions have pretty much been brought under control. It's not to say that they don't go up each year, the pension costs in our budget. They do. But at least it's a controlled growth. Back in the 1980s, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the cities and towns in Massachusetts realized that they were basically, they didn't have enough money in their pension systems to fund retirees' pensions. They also discovered that they really weren't making employees pay enough into the retirement system. Back in the 1980s, municipal employees, state employees were putting in 5% of their salary into the pension system. For those of you that work in the, well, I don't know what the breakdown is, but in the private sector, it's about 6% that you put in. And your employer puts in about 6%. So there's about 12% going in there for Social Security. When you only have 5% going in, and you're paying out pensions that are more healthy than Social Security, you know you're going to run into a problem. So beginning in the 1980s, they did two things. They said municipal employees and state employees have to start paying in more. So currently, new employees in the city of Lowell and across the Commonwealth pay in about 11% of their pay. The Lowell Sun writes stories, and they sometimes, in the other newspapers, sometimes write stories that make it sound like municipal employees and state employees get these free pensions. They don't. They put in 11%. Right now, they're putting in about 11% of their pay. All right? So they're basically paying their own way on that, for the most part. We still have to put in money, though, to pay for that amount that isn't being paid by the employee, but also to pay for the pensions that were paid to the people that only put in 5%, and now we have to make up that difference. We have an unfunded liability here in the city of about $150 million for our pensions that we have to pay off by the year 2034. That was the other difference that was made. Communities were put onto a pension payment plan. So that's what's going on with pensions. Health is a more difficult problem for us.
Can I interrupt you for one
Sure.
second? Is the city matching 11%?
No. Nope.
City's putting in 0?
The city puts in money. The city puts in money. The actuaries, we hire actuaries that actually review the way the pension system in Massachusetts works is, you know, the employee knows they're putting in that 11%, roughly. Some put in a little bit less if they started early. The employee also knows that when they retire, what they get for a pension will be dependent upon years of service, age of retirement, and the 3 highest years of employment. Their wages in the 3 highest years. So, you know, obviously we don't know for certain what's going to be paid, but we have the actuaries can sit down, they can figure out, okay, this is how much an employee is putting in now based on their salary, this is what's going to happen with the growth of that salary, and this is when that person will retire, and this is how long that person will live. And they calculate all this out and determine how much money is needed to keep in the pension system to pay the pensions for that period of time.